Operation Crossfire. Detective Daniel Vasconcellos had seen a lot in his 15 years at the narcotics police station, but the scene before him was different. In the center of the abandoned warehouse, a body lay next to a shipment of pure cocaine, stacked in bricks with a scorpion logo. The dead man was Ricardo "Rick" Sampaio, a small drug dealer who, according to intelligence information, was trying to climb the criminal hierarchy. "This wasn't just a deal gone wrong," muttered the detective. His partner, Sergeant Morrow, looked around. There were no signs of a struggle. Just a clear shot to the forehead and the bricks of drugs untouched. It felt like an execution. Forensics revealed that Rick had received a call minutes before his death. The number was a disposable phone, typical of drug trafficking. The last recorded location was a bar in the port area. That night, Daniel and Morrow went to the bar. The owner, a middle-aged man named Barbosa, pretended not to understand, but the nervous looks of one of the regulars caught Daniel's attention. He was a long-time informant, Giorgino. "I don't know anything, boss," he said, swallowing hard. Daniel squeezed the man's arm. "You always know something." After some pressure, Giorgino gave in. Rick was trying to outsmart the wrong guy. The Colombian cartel does not forgive traitors. But they say he was going to meet a police officer before he died. The revelation took Daniel by surprise. "What police officer?" Giorgino hesitated. "All I know is that they call him Ghost. He disappears with anyone who crosses his path." Daniel and Morrow exchanged looks. If there was a corrupt police officer involved, this was much bigger than a simple execution. In the following days, they followed the clues. They discovered that Rick had stolen part of the cartel's shipment and was trying to sell it on his own. The most frightening information came when they analyzed Rick's phone calls. One number belonged to an investigator from the police station itself. The name appeared on the computer screen: Delegate Ernesto Farias. Daniel felt his blood run cold. The head of the drug division was directly involved. Now they had a dangerous target, and they knew that if they got too close to the truth, they could be the Phantom's next targets. The hunt was just beginning. Daniel Vasconcellos knew that messing with the head of the anti-drug division was practically a death sentence. Chief Ernesto Farias was a respected man, with years of service, known for dismantling criminal networks. But if the evidence was right, he wasn't fighting trafficking, he was profiting from it. The detective and his partner Morrow decided to act cautiously. Before accusing Farias directly, they needed solid evidence. The first step was to find out how the police chief was involved in the death of Rick Sampaio and the cocaine shipment. Daniel reviewed footage from security cameras near the crime scene. After hours of analysis, a car caught his attention. A black sedan with no license plates, parked a block from the warehouse minutes before the execution. Morrow cross-checked police data and discovered that a similar vehicle was registered in the name of a shell company linked to an old police acquaintance, Paulos Malpasada Moretti, a former PM expelled from the corporation and now one of the main hired killers in organized crime. "If this guy is involved, things are uglier than they seem," said Morrow, slamming his fist on the table. The plan now was to attract Moretti. They needed a confession or some direct connection between him and Farias. The opportunity arose when Giorgino, the informant, said that Moretti used to meet with his contacts at Club 27, a nightclub in the South Zone, known for being a meeting point for criminals and corrupt police officers. Daniel and Morrow went there, disguised. The environment was dark, full of dangerous people. Among the VIP tables, they saw him, Paolo Moretti, wearing a gray suit, surrounded by security guards. Daniel picked up a glass and approached the counter, pretending to drink. Moretti laughed at something one of the henchmen said, but soon his expression changed as he looked across the room. Following his gaze, Daniel saw someone he didn't expect. Delegate Ernesto Farias. "Bingo," Mauro whispered. The two watched from a distance. Moretti and Farias spoke quietly, but their expressions were tense. After a few minutes, the delegate handed an envelope to the former PM. Moretti discreetly opened it, checked the contents and smiled. "It must be payment for dirty work," concluded Mauro. They had something big, but still not enough to take Farias down. Then Daniel had a risky idea. He took out his cell phone and sent a message to Giorgino. "I need a favor. Find out what Moretti is doing tomorrow." The informant took a while to respond, but when he did, he got straight to the point. "He's going to solve a problem tomorrow morning. Meeting at Warehouse 12, near the port." Daniel felt a shiver. The problem could be someone who knew too much. And if Moretti was involved, there was a good chance it was an execution. "We have to go there before him," said Mauro, getting up. They were about to invade dangerous territory without reinforcements. But they knew that if they waited, they might just find one more body, and they might never prove corruption within the police force itself. The game was rigged. Now it was a question of who would pull the trigger first. The clock showed 5:47 a.m. when Daniel and Mauro arrived at Armazém 12, near the port. The place was silent, only the sound of the waves hitting the concrete pillars broke the calm. They parked at a safe distance and got out of the car with their weapons drawn. "This smells like an ambush," muttered Mauro. Daniel nodded. They moved silently, keeping to the shadows. Suddenly, a black car stopped in front of the warehouse. Moretti got out of the vehicle accompanied by two armed henchmen. In their midst, a man was kneeling, with his hands tied and a black bag over his head. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "It's Giorgino." "Damn," Mauro whispered. Moretti pulled out a pistol and pointed it at the informant's head. "You said too much, you bastard rat. The boss doesn't like people who open their mouths." Daniel knew he had seconds to act. Without thinking, he stepped out of the shadow and shouted, "Police! Drop the gun!" The sound of the warning echoed throughout the warehouse. Moretti turned and bolted toward them. Daniel and Mauro threw themselves behind a pile of crates while the henchmen also opened fire. The shooting was intense. Mauro managed to hit one of the henchmen in the shoulder, knocking him down. Daniel rolled to the side and hit the second in the chest, who fell lifeless. Moretti, seeing the situation worsen, grabbed Giorgino and pointed the gun at his head. "Put your weapons down or I'll blow his brains out." Daniel exchanged a quick look with Mauro. Moretti was cornered. But before they could react, the sound of an approaching car caught everyone's attention. A black sedan stopped abruptly, and none other than Delegate Ernesto Farias emerged from inside it. "What the fuck is going on here?" shouted Farias. Moretti smiled, relieved. "Boss, those bastards ruined the plan." Daniel took advantage of the distraction. "The game is over, Farias. We know you are the real boss of all this." The deputy stared at Daniel for a moment, then began to laugh. "Do you think you can arrest me?" he said, opening his arms. "I am the law in this city." Farias then pointed his gun at Daniel. But before he could fire, A shot rang through the air. Bang! The deputy's eyes widened and he staggered back. Moretti, who had fired, lowered the gun and shrugged. Nothing personal, boss. Just business. But before he could escape, Morrow was faster and fired 2 accurate shots. Moretti fell to his knees, choking on his own blood. Daniel ran to Giorgino and untied his hands. "You guys took a while, huh?" grumbled the informant. The sound of sirens filled the port. Daniel had alerted the department before leaving, ensuring they would have backup. When the other officers arrived, they found Farias down, Moretti dead, and a shipment of enough drugs to put an entire cartel behind bars. With Farias' death, the network of corruption within the police began to collapse. Investigations revealed that he and Moretti had been operating together for years, diverting drugs and eliminating anyone who threatened the scheme. Daniel and Morrow knew that the war against crime never ended, but that night, at least, justice prevailed.